The scanner beeped sharp enough to cut through the warehouse noise. Isaiah Jackson held it closer, waiting for the route to populate, watching the little bar creep across the screen while forklifts whined and pallets thudded into place. His hands already smelled like cardboard and sanitizer from the morning wipe down. The air tasted like dust and burnt coffee. Somewhere behind him, a supervisor shouted a name, like it was an accusation. Marcus waved him over with 2 fingers and a tight look. The tablet in his hand caught the fluorescent light, turning his face pale for a second. Isaiah walked up, shoulders squared, trying not to look tired. His delivery jacket sat heavy on his back, the fabric stiff with old sweat that never fully washed out. He had slept in pieces again, waking to his mother coughing through the wall, the sound scraping his ribs from the inside. Marcus tapped the tablet and angled it so Isaiah could see the order details. "This one is different," Marcus said. "Last minute. Private estate, out in Bellwood Hills." Isaiah stared at the address. Bellwood Hills might as well have been another planet. Marcus lowered his voice, the way men did when they wanted to sound helpful without taking responsibility. System flagged it executive only. Client requested personal delivery inside the property, and it pays triple. Isaiah felt his stomach tighten. Triple was a word that made his mind do math before he could stop it. The refill at the pharmacy, the bill on the counter that never stopped staring, the rent due soon. The new symptom, his mother kept pretending, was nothing. "Inside the property," Isaiah repeated. Marcus shrugged like the idea was annoying rather than suspicious. Rich people are weird. They like control. They like watching someone do what they say. You deliver it. You leave. No wandering. No touching anything. And do not ask questions. Isaiah looked up. Marcus held his gaze for a beat, then added, softer, almost like he was trying to be kind. "They do not like their time wasted." The warehouse sound swelled again. A belt squealed. A cart rattled. Isaiah swallowed and nodded once. He signed the tablet, took the package, and felt the weight of it settle into his forearms. Medium-sized, clean edges, sealed like it was more important than anything in his van. No return label he recognized, no brand. Just a printed code that looked too formal for ordinary shipping. He loaded it into the back, closed the doors, and heard the latch click hard. The van smelled like old plastic and heat. The engine coughed when he turned the key, then caught with a rough tremor that rattled the mirror. He sat for a second, hands on the wheel, watching his own breath fog the windshield. His phone buzzed with a message from his mother. A simple good morning that made his throat ache. He drove. The city shifted around him, as if the streets themselves had decided he did not belong. Storefronts gave way to cleaner blocks. Cracked sidewalks became smooth. The cars around him grew quieter and more expensive. Even the air looked different. Less gray. Less tired. When he turned onto Willowbrook Lane, the trees arched over the road like an entrance to a private world. The houses were set back far behind hedges cut with obsessive precision. His van felt too loud, too dented, too honest. At the end of the lane stood the gate, stone pillars. Ironwork twisted into patterns that looked decorative until he noticed the camera tucked into one corner, watching him without blinking. A speaker panel sat at window height like a mouth, waiting to judge his voice. Isaiah pressed the button. The panel crackled. He spoke clearly anyway. "Quick shift delivery. For the Whitmore residence." Silence stretched. Then the speaker hissed again. "Please wait." He waited with both hands on the wheel, trying not to shift in his seat like he was guilty of something. The camera moved slightly, tracking him. He could feel it on his skin, the way he could feel a stare in a crowded room. Then the gate began to open. It did not squeal. It did not strain. It swung back smoothly, as if it had been expecting him all morning. "Drive through to the main house," the voice said. "Someone will meet you." The driveway curved through gardens that looked unreal, the kind of green that felt expensive. Water glimmered in a fountain somewhere out of sight. The van tires made a dull crunch on gravel, so perfectly arranged it sounded rehearsed. The mansion came into view slowly, like a reveal in a film. Brick and white columns, tall windows, ivy climbing one wall, as if it had been trained to look romantic. It was not just big. It was old wealth, pretending it was tasteful. Isaiah parked near the front steps. His uniform suddenly felt like a costume. His sneakers looked louder than they should. A man in a dark suit appeared from a side entrance, walking with the controlled posture of professional security. White, middle-aged, clean haircut, eyes that measured distance and risk before deciding where to stand. "You have a delivery for Mr. Whitmore," the guard said. "Yes," Isaiah answered. "They told me personal delivery inside." The guard nodded once and gestured. "Follow me. Do not wander. Do not touch anything." Isaiah gripped the package tighter and climbed the steps. The door opened into a hall that stole his breath. Marble underfoot, cold even through rubber soles. A chandelier overhead that threw light like it belonged to a cathedral. A staircase curving up with polished wood, and a carpet so thick it swallowed sound. His own footsteps echoed anyway. He could not stop thinking about how many people had walked here without ever worrying about a late fee. The guard led him down a hallway lined with paintings, landscapes, and portraits of stern faces that stared past him as if he did not exist. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish, and something older, like leather and money, kept in quiet rooms. They passed a library with shelves that rose to the ceiling, books arranged like decoration, but too numerous to be fake. They passed a sitting room with furniture that looked too perfect to risk sitting on. The house felt like a museum, the kind that did not allow food, noise, or mistakes. The guard stopped at a doorway and tilted his chin. "Mr. Whitmore is in the conservatory. You can leave the package on the table near the door." Isaiah stepped inside. Sunlight flooded the room through tall glass walls. It was warm here, bright enough to show every floating speck of dust. Plants sat in expensive pots, leaves glossy and alive. Outside, the grounds rolled into the distance in careful green layers. Near the far windows stood an elderly man with white hair, hands clasped behind his back, staring out as if the world belonged to him. Isaiah moved quietly toward the table, careful, obedient, ready to disappear as soon as the job was done. He set the package down with both hands, keeping it centered, keeping it respectful, as if the cardboard could feel insult. He turned to leave. Then he saw the easel. It stood in a pool of sunlight near the center of the room, angled just right to catch the glow. A large portrait rested on it, painted with a softness that made the subject look real enough to breathe. Isaiah stopped. The room seemed to narrow around his vision. His mouth went dry so fast it felt like sand. A young black woman sat in the painting, dressed elegantly, hair pulled back, cheekbones sharp, eyes steady. At her throat, a gold necklace caught the light, painted so carefully it looked like it could clink if she moved. Isaiah knew that necklace. He had seen it once, hidden in a box at the back of his mother's closet, wrapped in old cloth like it was dangerous to touch. His fingers loosened. The delivery bag slid from his grip and hit the floor with a dull thud. The woman in the portrait was unmistakably his mother, decades younger, but undeniably her. Isaiah could not breathe. Isaiah's throat worked like it was trying to swallow a stone. The sunlight on the canvas felt too bright, too clean, like it was exposing something that had never been meant to breathe outside a locked room. His eyes stayed on the woman's painted face, searching for a mistake that would let him walk away. There was none. The same soft curve at the corner of her mouth, the same steadiness in her gaze that, in real life, had carried Isaiah through eviction notices and unpaid bills without ever letting him see her break. The gold at her throat gleamed with a quiet precision that made Isaiah's skin prickle. He could almost hear the faint whisper of chain links against skin, even though the room was silent. Behind him, the older man near the windows shifted his weight. Leather from his shoe brushed softly against stone. Isaiah forced himself to turn. The billionaire was facing him now. White hair, tailored clothes, the kind of stillness that suggested a lifetime of being listened to. His expression held mild irritation at first, like Isaiah was an inconvenience that had lingered too long. Then Isaiah saw his gaze flick toward the easel. A change crossed the old man's face so fast it might have been imagined. Something tightened, then flattened. A practiced blankness slid into place. Isaiah heard his own voice before he felt it leave his mouth. "Sir." It came out rough, scraped thin by disbelief. He tried again, louder, steadier, even though his hands had started to tremble. "Sir, why is my mom's photo in your house?" The words landed like a dropped plate in a quiet restaurant. Not loud, but impossible to ignore. The security guard at the doorway went rigid. A muscle jumped in his jaw. His hand drifted a fraction closer to the radio, clipped at his belt, not grabbing it, just remembering it was there. The billionaire did not answer. He stared at Isaiah as if Isaiah had spoken in a language he was not supposed to know. The sunlight hit the man's face, and Isaiah watched the color drain from it, leaving a pale, almost translucent look around the eyes. "Your mother," the old man repeated. It was not a question. It was not disbelief, either. It sounded like a word pulled from somewhere deep and sharp. Isaiah lifted one shaking hand and pointed at the portrait without touching it. "That's her. That's Renee. Renee Jackson." The billionaire's pupils tightened. His gaze snapped back to the painting, then returned to Isaiah's face, slower this time. He studied Isaiah as if he were reading details off a document, measuring cheekbones, the line of a nose, the shape of a mouth. Isaiah's chest rose and fell too fast. He could smell lemon polish, and beneath it, something faintly bitter, like old paper stored too long. "Say something," Isaiah demanded, and the edge in his voice surprised even him. "Why is she here?" The guard shifted his stance in the doorway, feet spreading slightly for balance, like he was preparing for Isaiah to do something reckless. The billionaire's lips parted. For a second, Isaiah thought he might deny it, might laugh, might call him crazy. Instead, the old man's eyes caught on Isaiah's name tag, then lifted again. "Renee Marie," he said. The full name hit Isaiah like cold water. The guard's head turned sharply. The guard had not been told that name. Isaiah had not said it. Isaiah felt the hairs rise on his arms. "What did you just say?" Isaiah whispered. The billionaire looked as if he had not meant to speak aloud. His jaw worked, once, then stilled. One hand rose halfway, then dropped again, fingers flexing, as if the room had suddenly tilted. Isaiah's voice came out stronger, fueled now by a new kind of fear. "How do you know her middle name?" The guard took a step forward. "Sir, do you want me to escort him out?" The billionaire lifted a hand sharply, without looking away from Isaiah. "No." The guard hesitated, caught between protocol and the weight in that single syllable. Isaiah could hear his own heartbeat, slow and loud, filling the glass room. Somewhere outside, a sprinkler clicked, then stopped. The guard's voice hardened. "Sir, this is not. Stay where you are," the billionaire said. His tone did not rise, but it cracked like a whip anyway. The guard stopped mid-step, frozen in place, the radio still untouched. The billionaire inhaled through his nose, like he was trying to keep himself from unraveling. His eyes went to the portrait again, lingering at the gold necklace painted so delicately it looked like it could cut. Then he spoke, slow and careful. "Is your mother's name Renee Marie Jackson?" Isaiah's mouth went dry. "Yes," he said. "Yes. She's 47. She works at County General. She raised me alone." He paused, then pushed the words out like they hurt to hold. "That portrait is my mother. So, you tell me how you have it." The billionaire's shoulders sagged a fraction, a barely visible collapse. His fingers curled around the edge of the window frame, knuckles whitening as if he needed the glass to keep him upright. For a moment, Isaiah saw something raw beneath the money and the polish, not pity, not superiority, something closer to pain. The billionaire swallowed. His voice dropped lower. "Leave us." The guard blinked. "Sir." "Now." The guard's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to Isaiah, assessing threat, then back to the billionaire. He backed out one slow step, then another, never fully turning his back. Isaiah heard the faint crackle of the guard's radio as he retreated, a quiet murmur that Isaiah could not make out. The sound faded down the hall. The conservatory door clicked shut. Isaiah stood alone with the billionaire, the light still pouring in like nothing had changed, like the air was not suddenly full of buried years. The billionaire moved to a chair near the windows and sat down heavily, as if his legs had decided for him. He stared at the portrait, then at Isaiah, and the words that came out next sounded like they had been trapped behind his teeth for decades. "I knew her." Isaiah did not remember walking out of the conservatory, only the way the hallway seemed to tilt, the way every polished surface reflected him like a mistake that had wandered too far inside. The security staff watched without speaking. Their eyes followed his hands, his pockets, the package he had already delivered, as if the truth he had uncovered could be smuggled out in cardboard. Outside, the air was bright and sharp. The cold bit his cheeks. He climbed into the van and sat with both hands locked around the steering wheel until his knuckles ached. His chest kept rising too fast, like his body was still running, even though he was parked. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "How's your morning going, baby?" The words made his throat tighten. He stared at the screen until it blurred, then turned the phone face down, like it had accused him of something. The van engine vibrated under him when he finally started it. A rough, impatient rumble that sounded too normal for what had just happened. He drove away from Bellwood Hills, down streets that grew less manicured, less silent. Traffic noise returned. Horns, a siren in the distance. He kept seeing the portrait every time he blinked, the gold necklace catching sunlight like a warning. The apartment building smelled like fried oil and old carpet when he pushed through the lobby door. He climbed the stairs, two at a time. The walls felt closer than they had that morning, as if the building itself was bracing for impact. Renee was in the living room folding laundry on the worn couch. A towel lay across her lap. She looked up with a smile already formed, the kind she used to soften hard mornings. Then she saw Isaiah's face. The smile slipped away. "Isaiah," she said, and her voice changed, thinning at the edges. "Why aren't you at work?" He did not answer. His hands were still shaking. He pulled out his phone, opened the photo he had snapped without thinking, and held it out to her. The portrait filled the screen. The young woman's eyes looked straight into the room. The gold necklace glinted, even in a pixelated image. Renee's fingers went still. The towel slid from her lap and landed on the floor with a soft thump. All the color drained from her face. She sat down hard, one hand pressing against her chest as if the air had thickened around her. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. Isaiah watched her like he had never watched her before, reading her reactions like evidence. "A mansion in Bellwood Hills," he said. "The Whitmore place. A man named Arthur Whitmore." At the name, Renee flinched so sharply it looked like pain. Her eyes squeezed shut for a second, and when she opened them again, something new lived there. Not sadness, fear. "You know him," Isaiah said. "You knew him." Renee's lips parted, but no sound came out. She stared at the photo as if it could burn through the phone. "That's you," Isaiah continued, forcing the words to stay steady. "That necklace, the one you hid. He had your portrait on an easel in his conservatory like you were. Like you belonged there." Renee's breath hitched. Her shoulders rose and fell once, shallow. Isaiah crouched in front of her, voice low but sharp. "You have to tell me what this is. Because I asked him why your photo was in his house, and he knew your full name. Renee Marie." Renee's head lifted slowly. Tears gathered in her eyes, but they did not fall yet. Her jaw tightened, like she was trying to keep something inside from spilling out. "I prayed you'd never find out about him," she said. Isaiah's stomach twisted. "Find out what, Mama?" Renee looked past Isaiah toward the thin wall that separated them from their neighbor's television. The sound was muffled, distant, ordinary. It made her look more alone. "It doesn't matter anymore," she said. "It matters to me," Isaiah snapped, and his voice cracked. "I saw him go pale when I said your name. I watched him crumble over you like you were a ghost he's been carrying for 20 years. What happened?" Renee's fingers pressed into her knees. Her nails were short, bitten down, the hands of someone who had spent a lifetime scrubbing other people's messes. "That man destroys lives, Isaiah," she said. "Even when he means well. Even when he thinks he's helping. Everything he touches turns complicated and dangerous." Isaiah felt anger flare, bright and helpless. "Then why do you have that necklace?" he asked. "Why is your face in his house? Why did he say he knew you?" Renee's eyes dropped to the phone again. Her voice came out smaller. "A long time ago, before you were born, we were close," she said. "Too close." Isaiah's pulse hammered in his ears. The room felt too warm, too small, and when I realized what staying in his world would cost, I left, Renee continued. "I left because I had to." Isaiah swallowed. His mouth was dry. "Cost what?" Renee shook her head once, quickly, as if refusing the question might erase it. Isaiah leaned closer, trying to catch her eyes. "Mama, what aren't you telling me?" Renee finally looked at him fully, and the steel Isaiah knew from years of hardship slid into place behind her fear. "Everything that matters," she said. She reached out and took his hand. Her palm was cold. "And I need you to promise me something." Isaiah did not move. "Promise me you'll never go back to that house," Renee said. "Promise me you'll forget what you saw today. You opened a door that should stay closed." Isaiah stared at her, trying to understand the shape of what she was asking. "Forget," he repeated. Renee squeezed his hand tighter, as if she could force him into agreement through pressure alone. "Isaiah, listen to me," she said. "I left that world to protect you. If you go digging into this, you'll pull us into something we can't fight. You'll make us visible to people who don't want us visible." Isaiah's mind jumped to the way the guard's hand had hovered near his radio, the way the mansion had seemed to watch him. His mother's voice softened, pleading now. "Trust me, please." Isaiah looked down at their clasped hands. He thought of the necklace hidden in her closet, kept but never worn, like proof she could not throw away. He thought of his entire life, built on unanswered questions, on a missing father shaped like silence, He pulled his hand back gently. "I can't promise that," he said. Renee's face tightened. Isaiah stood, pacing once across the small living room. The carpet was worn thin near the couch. The air smelled faintly of bleach and laundry soap. He turned back to his mother. "You never told me where you came from," he said. "You never told me why we don't have family. You never told me anything before my lifetime. And now I find your portrait in a billionaire's home, and you want me to forget." Renee's eyes filled, finally spilling tears that tracked down her cheeks. "I did what I had to do," she whispered. Isaiah's chest hurt. "Then I'm going to do what I have to do," he said. He picked up his phone. The portrait still glowed on the screen, the gold necklace bright as a fuse. Renee watched him with something like dread. That night, when the apartment went quiet, and her coughing started again in the next room, Isaiah lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wide awake. His phone screen lit his face as he searched Arthur Whitmore's name, watching wealth and power spill across the results. And every time he typed his mother's name beneath it, the screen gave him nothing back. The laptop fan whined like it was irritated by the questions Isaiah kept feeding it. The kitchen light was off, leaving the room lit only by the cold glow of the screen. Every so often, the building's radiator clicked, then went quiet again, as if it were deciding whether they deserved warmth. Isaiah sat at the small table with his elbows tight to his sides. His mother's bedroom door was closed. He could still hear her coughing through it, a rough, stubborn sound that made the air feel thinner. He typed her name again, slower this time, as if careful spelling might force the internet to remember. Renee Marie Jackson Whitmore. Enter. No results found. He clicked images, and a row of blank squares loaded, flickered, then disappeared. The page offered him other people with the same last name, smiling strangers in graduation gowns and family photos that looked like they had never known fear. Isaiah's fingers hovered over the keys. The skin around his nails was torn. He pressed his thumb into it until it hurt, focusing on pain because it was simpler than the feeling in his chest. He tried different combinations, adding dates, adding the company name, adding the city. Renee Jackson Whitmore Industries 1998. Enter. Nothing. It was not just absence. It was clean absence, as if someone had swept the floor after a spill and then polished it until there was no trace the spill had ever existed. Isaiah leaned back and exhaled, long and controlled, the way he had learned to breathe when he was trying not to break down in front of his mother. He switched tactics. Arthur Whitmore brought up a flood. Articles, awards, photos of him cutting ribbons and shaking hands, net worth estimates and philanthropic headlines. A timeline of power that never questioned itself. Isaiah scrolled until the words blurred, then narrowed his search by year, forcing the results backward into the time his mother would have been young. The screen filled with older headlines, grainier images, corporate jargon that sounded harmless until it didn't. Restructuring, strategic realignment, advisory positions eliminated. He clicked through a business journal scan from the late 90s, eyes scanning for any hint of human life inside the sentences. His gaze caught on a date in the corner of the page, 1999. His pulse quickened. He leaned closer, smelling faint heat from the laptop vents, the plastic scent of cheap electronics working too hard. A mention. Brief. Cold. Whitmore Industries announces restructuring of Executive Advisory Board. Several key positions eliminated following internal review. The words meant nothing, yet they felt like a door cracked open. Isaiah copied the date into a new search, pairing it with charity events, galas, board photos, anything where executives would have been forced into the same frame. He clicked a link to an archived society page, A photo loaded slowly, line by line, like the image was reluctant to reveal itself. A group shot, men in tuxedos, women in gowns, smiles that looked practiced. Arthur Whitmore stood near the center, younger but recognizable, his hair darker, his posture the same. Isaiah zoomed in, pinching the trackpad until the pixels broke. In the back row, partially obscured by a taller man, a young black woman stood with her shoulders back, expression calm in the way his mother's face got when she refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her nervous. The picture quality was bad. The face was not perfectly clear, but the posture hit him like a memory. Isaiah's throat tightened. He stared until his eyes burned. Below the image, the caption listed names in a block without matching them to faces. Whitmore Industries Leadership and Advisory Team. No Renee. No annotation. No proof. Isaiah saved the image anyway, his fingers moving fast, afraid the page would vanish if he hesitated. A low vibration buzzed against the table. His phone. He ignored it, then felt a second buzz, then a third. Notifications from nowhere, from people he barely spoke to. His stomach turned even before he opened any of them. He shoved the phone aside and kept digging. An hour passed in a blur of tabs and dead ends. Isaiah searched for Whitmore Industries controversies around the same years. Lawsuits, competitors, defamation claims. He filtered for mergers and collapses, for anything that might have forced a story underground. Then he found it. A legal docket entry, sparse and sealed, like a file someone did not want read. The page looked official, clean fonts, no emotion, just names and dates. Whitmore Industries versus Barrett Holdings. Isaiah's hands went cold. The summary line was clipped, stripped of detail by privacy protections, but the words that remained were sharp enough. Defamation, corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty. Isaiah read the line twice, then a third time, as if repetition would make it less real. Barrett Holdings. He opened another tab and searched the company name. A corporate profile appeared, then the words dissolved into closure notices and archived records. Dissolved in 2001. Isaiah stared at the date, the way it sat on the screen like a headstone. He pulled the tab back to the lawsuit and scrolled down. Nothing else. No names beyond the companies. No witnesses. No exhibits. Just the outline of a war in legal language. Isaiah's jaw clenched. He thought about his mother's fear when she said that world was dangerous. He thought about the emptiness of the search results, the way her name vanished like it had been erased by a hand with money. His phone buzzed again, harder this time, vibrating against the table in short bursts like it was impatient. Unknown number. Isaiah stared at it. The screen's glow reflected in the dark window behind him, doubling his face in the glass. He looked like someone older than he was. He answered, "Hello." A man's voice came through, crisp and neutral, like it belonged to someone used to controlling rooms without raising volume. Isaiah Jackson. Isaiah's spine stiffened. "Who is this?" "My name is Thomas Brennan," the voice said. "I represent Mr. Whitmore. He asked me to reach out to you discreetly." Isaiah's grip tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number?" A pause, polite enough to feel like a warning. "Mr. Whitmore has resources. Please do not be alarmed. He wants to ensure you and your mother are well." Isaiah swallowed, tasting something metallic in his mouth. "We are fine," he said, though the lie felt thin. "Tell him to leave us alone." "I understand this is overwhelming," Brennan replied. "Mr. Whitmore is prepared to offer assistance, financial support, medical care, no strings attached." Isaiah's eyes flicked to the closed bedroom door. A cough leaked through, followed by a strained inhale. "Why?" Isaiah asked. "Why does he care?" Another pause, shorter this time. "I think you know why," Brennan said quietly. Isaiah's chest tightened. The lawsuit tab sat open on the laptop, the words corporate espionage glaring like an accusation. "Say it," Isaiah said, voice low. "That is between you, your mother, and Mr. Whitmore," Brennan answered. "I am simply here to facilitate whatever you decide." Isaiah's fingers dug into the phone. The apartment felt too small. The silence between Brennan's words felt crowded. "Mr. Whitmore would like to meet with you again," Brennan added. "Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, the mansion. Or, if you prefer, a public place." Isaiah's mouth went dry. "Tomorrow," he repeated. "Yes." Isaiah looked at the laptop screen one more time. Whitmore Industries versus Barrett Holdings. A sealed story that had somehow reached into his apartment and into his mother's lungs. He did not speak for a moment. Then, very carefully, he said, "I will come." He ended the call before his voice could shake. The phone screen went dark. The laptop fan kept whining. In the next room, his mother coughed again, and Isaiah realized the past was no longer behind them. It was knocking. The gates opened before Isaiah pressed the intercom. The iron bars slid apart with the same silent precision as before, and that quiet made his stomach tighten more than any barking guard could have. He drove up the long curve of the driveway with both hands locked on the wheel. The mansion appeared through the trees, unchanged, but Isaiah felt different approaching it now, as if he were walking toward a verdict instead of a delivery. At the front door, Thomas Brennan waited. Silver hair, tailored coat, calm eyes that never wasted movement. The air around him smelled faintly of expensive cologne and cold night. "Isaiah," Brennan said, offering a hand that Isaiah did not take. "Thank you for coming. Mr. Whitmore is in his study." "Are you staying?" Isaiah asked. "No," Brennan replied. "This conversation is private. I will be nearby if needed." The hallway swallowed Isaiah again, warmer than the night outside, smelling of polish and old wood. Brennan's shoes made almost no sound on the floors, while Isaiah's sneakers seemed to announce every step. The study door was heavy, carved, the kind of door built to keep secrets from leaking. Brennan knocked once and opened it. "Sir, Isaiah is here." Inside, firelight flickered, turning the room amber. Bookshelves rose like walls. A desk sat broad and dark, its surface too clean. Arthur Whitmore stood near the fireplace with a glass in his hand, the ice inside clinking softly when he set it down. He looked older than Isaiah remembered from the conservatory, not just in years, but in weight. His shoulders held tension like a man bracing for impact. "Isaiah," Arthur said, "thank you for coming. Please, sit." Isaiah sat in the chair opposite him, keeping his back straight. The leather creaked under his weight. He hated that the chair felt softer than anything in his apartment. "Your lawyer said you wanted to explain," Isaiah said. Arthur's gaze stayed steady. He did not rush. He let the silence hold for a beat, as if he needed to be sure Isaiah would not bolt. "Before I tell you anything," Arthur said, "you need to understand something. Your mother kept things from you because she believed it would keep you safe. Whatever you feel after this, remember that." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "Just tell me the truth." Arthur inhaled slowly and set his glass on the mantel. The fire popped once, a sharp sound in the quiet. "Your mother and I met in 1997, Arthur began. "She was 22, brilliant, fresh out of graduate school. She applied to Whitmore Industries, and I hired her." Isaiah stared at him, trying to fit that image to the woman who came home, smelling like bleach and fatigue. "My board objected," Arthur continued. Because she was young, black, and a woman in a world built for old men. Because she spoke like she did not fear consequences. Arthur's mouth tightened, a hint of something like regret. She challenged me. She challenged everything around me. And she was right more often than anyone wanted to admit. Isaiah's fingers curled against his thigh. If this is a speech, it is not, Arthur said. Sharper than before, then softened. I am trying to be accurate. He paced once toward the window, then back, the way a man did when the past felt like a room he had to cross. Within a year, she was advising me directly, Arthur said. She had access to decisions, to deals, to the parts of my company that could hurt people without ever seeing their faces. She pushed for fair wages, ethical sourcing, things my world dismissed as weakness. Isaiah heard his mother's voice in the kitchen, telling him to do the right thing even when it was harder. He swallowed. They hated her, Isaiah said. Arthur nodded once. They feared her, and I listened to her anyway. Arthur's eyes lifted. The firelight made them look darker. Because she was right, he said. And because I fell in love with her. The words landed heavy. Not romantic, just factual and dangerous. Isaiah's throat tightened. You were married. I was, Arthur admitted. A marriage in name by then. That does not excuse what I did. It is simply true. Isaiah held Arthur's gaze, feeling anger coil beneath his ribs, but also something else. A sick kind of understanding that adults made choices and children paid for them. Then why did she leave? Isaiah asked. Arthur's jaw flexed. Because my enemies noticed. Arthur moved to his desk and picked up a folder, running his fingers along the edge without opening it yet, as if he needed something solid to hold. Barrett Holdings, Arthur said. They saw my company as a target, and they saw Renee as leverage. They tried to pull her to their side. When she refused, they came for her reputation. Isaiah's mind flashed to the sealed lawsuit on his laptop screen. The words, corporate espionage, rumors, Arthur continued. That she manipulated me. That she slept her way into influence. Lies designed to isolate her. Isaiah's nails dug into his palm. And you let them. Arthur's face tightened. I did not defend her publicly the way I should have. I was protecting my company, protecting myself. I thought silence would reduce the danger. It only made her stand alone. Isaiah's voice went cold. So, she disappeared. Arthur's gaze dropped for a moment, then lifted again. Steady but strained. Yes, he said. And before she did, she found something. Arthur opened the folder and slid a few pages toward Isaiah without pushing them into his hands. The paper looked official. Dates, headers, clean language, masking ugliness. Barrett was not just spreading rumors, Arthur said. They had placed someone inside Whitmore Industries. They were stealing information, sabotaging deals. Renee found evidence. She brought it to me. That lawsuit existed because she handed me the match. Isaiah stared at the papers, then back at Arthur. You are saying she saved your company? Arthur nodded. And then she left anyway. Isaiah's chest felt tight. Why would she do that? Arthur's voice dropped. Because it got worse. Barrett had connections. Not just corporate. People who did not hesitate to threaten families. When I realized staying near me made Renee a target, I made a choice. Isaiah's stomach twisted. What choice? Arthur looked at him, and for the first time he seemed to flinch at his own words. I stopped looking, Arthur said. I buried every trace of her connection to me. Records, contacts, anything that could lead someone to her through my name. I made her invisible. Isaiah's mouth went dry. That is why I could not find her online. Arthur nodded once, shame flickering across his face. Yes, Isaiah pushed himself up from the chair, pacing to the edge of the fireplace and back. His sneakers scuffed the rug. He did not care. You erased her, Isaiah said, and she still ended up cleaning hospital rooms while you lived here. Arthur's eyes glistened but did not spill. I did not know where she was. I did not know what she was enduring. I told myself she was safe. It was the lie I lived with. Isaiah's voice cracked. She raised me alone. She worked herself into sickness. We lived in places where the heat barely worked. Arthur's face tightened like he had been struck. If I had known, Arthur said, I would have. You already proved you would choose your company over her, Isaiah said. Silence dropped hard between them. The fire hissed as a log shifted. Arthur did not deny it. He let the accusation sit where it belonged. You are right, he said quietly. I failed her. I failed in a way I cannot undo. Isaiah turned back, breathing hard. Then, say it. Say what you are dancing around. Arthur met his eyes. You are my son, Isaiah. The words felt unreal in the air, too heavy for such a quiet room. Isaiah's knees went weak. He lowered himself back into the chair, hands gripping the armrests, as if the leather could keep him from falling. Arthur's voice remained steady, but his hands trembled slightly at his sides. I had a DNA test done, Arthur said. I needed to be sure. Isaiah's mind flashed to the way the gates opened without question, the way his name had been known too quickly, the way power moved through walls. You tested me without telling me, Isaiah whispered. Arthur's gaze held, guilt and certainty mixed. I did, and I am sorry. Isaiah swallowed hard. Does my mother know? Not yet, Arthur said. I wanted to speak with you first. This is your life, your choice. Isaiah's chest rose and fell unevenly. He could smell smoke from the fire, sharp and clean. He could hear the faint tick of a clock somewhere, counting seconds that felt stolen. Arthur stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. I am not offering you charity, Arthur said. I am offering you recognition, truth, and yes, help, if you let me. Your mother's care, your education, a life where you do not have to grind yourself down to survive. Isaiah's voice came out raw. And your other children, your heirs. You think they will accept me? Arthur's jaw set. They will have to. Isaiah stared at him, feeling the room shift again, not with dizziness now, but with the weight of what this would unleash. He thought of his mother's fear, the way she had begged him to stop digging. He thought of her cough behind the closed door. I need time, Isaiah said. Arthur nodded. Slow. Take it. Isaiah stood, his legs unsteady but holding. I am going to tell her, Isaiah said. She deserves that. Arthur's voice softened. I agree. Isaiah walked toward the door, then paused with his hand on the knob, feeling the smooth wood under his palm. For what it is worth, Isaiah said, I believe you loved her. But love is not protection. He opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving Arthur alone with the fire, the papers, and the kind of truth that did not warm anyone. 3 days felt like an accident, until the pattern hardened. Isaiah was back at the distribution center when Marcus called him into the small office by the loading bay. The room smelled like stale coffee and printer toner. A space heater rattled in the corner, blowing air that never quite warmed. Marcus kept his eyes on the desk, not on Isaiah. A folder sat between them, perfectly aligned with the edge, like someone had placed it there to look official. Look, kid, Marcus said, voice low. This is not personal. Isaiah's stomach tightened. He waited for the usual lecture about late scans or missed routes. Instead, Marcus slid the folder forward with 2 fingers. Orders came from corporate. They are letting you go. The words did not land all at once. They arrived in pieces, as if Isaiah's brain refused to accept the shape of them. What? Isaiah said. Why? Marcus finally looked up. His face held genuine discomfort. They said, restructuring. Eliminating positions. Yours is one of them. Isaiah stared at him, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Restructuring was a word that meant someone with power had made a decision, and someone without power was supposed to nod. I have not missed shifts, Isaiah said. I have no complaints. I know, Marcus replied. That is why this makes no sense to me either. He tapped the folder. 2 weeks. Severance. I am sorry. Isaiah picked it up. The paper inside felt thin. Ink that smelled faintly fresh. His name printed cleanly on top, like it had been prepared in advance. The bay door rolled up with a metallic groan behind him. Cold air rushed in, and Isaiah felt it hit his face like a slap as he walked out carrying the folder. He sat in his van for a long moment, staring at the steering wheel, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. A message lit up his phone. Not from his mother, from Thomas Brennan. I need to speak with you. Please call when you can. Isaiah did not call. Not yet. He drove home with the folder on the passenger seat like a threat. When he reached the apartment building, he found a notice taped to their door. A white sheet, corners curling, held down by cheap, clear tape that made a ripping sound when he peeled it off. Rent increase effective immediately. $400. His breath caught. The number sat on the page like a knife. He read it twice, then a third time, as if the ink might change. Inside, the apartment smelled like laundry soap and cough drops. Renee was not home yet. Isaiah set the notice on the table and stood in the kitchen staring at it, feeling a slow heat rise in his chest. His phone buzzed again. Brennan. Still, Isaiah put the phone face down. That night, Renee came in after her shift, shoulders sagging, hair pulled back too tightly. She paused when she saw Isaiah sitting at the table with 2 sheets of paper laid out like evidence. Her eyes moved from his face to the notice, then to the termination packet. Isaiah, she said quietly, they fired me. Isaiah answered, and the landlord raised the rent. Renee's lips parted. She did not speak at first. She reached for the rent notice and held it closer under the kitchen light, as if reading the words carefully could keep panic from entering the room. This is starting, she said. Starting what? Isaiah asked, though his voice was already tense. Renee looked up at him, and Isaiah saw that familiar steel return, the kind she used when she scrubbed past exhaustion. The pressure, she said. The quiet war, Isaiah swallowed. You think this is them? Renee did not have to name who. The air between them already carried the name. They know, she said. Someone saw you, someone talked. Information like that does not stay buried once it gets disturbed. Isaiah's jaw clenched. Arthur promised he would handle it. Renee shook her head once, a small motion full of tired certainty. Power does not handle. Power reacts. And when it reacts, it does not care who gets crushed underneath. Isaiah's phone lit up again. This time it was not Brennan. It was a friend from community college. Have you seen what they are saying about your mom? Another message. Then another. Isaiah's stomach dropped. He opened his browser and typed Renee's name. His hands went cold as results loaded. Posts, threads, anonymous accounts with usernames that meant nothing but carried venom. Gold digger, homewrecker, scam, trapped him. Lied for decades. The words blurred into each other. What made Isaiah's skin prickle was not just the insults. It was the details, dates, locations, old corporate references, phrases that sounded like they had been lifted from internal memos. Someone had access to a past that had been scrubbed from public view. Someone was dragging it back into daylight with dirty hands. Renee stood behind him, silent. Then she sat down slowly in the chair across from him, as if her knees had suddenly lost strength. She stared at the screen, without blinking. Isaiah expected her to cry. She did not. She closed her eyes for a second and inhaled, steadying herself the way she did before walking into a room full of people who did not respect her. "Call Arthur," she said. Isaiah's throat tightened. "If we take his money now, his son will say we are proving him right." Renee opened her eyes. They were wet, but focused. "This is not about pride anymore," she said. "This is about survival." Isaiah grabbed his phone and called Thomas Brennan. Brennan answered immediately, as if he had been waiting with the phone in his hand. "Isaiah," Brennan said, "I was hoping you would call." "They fired me," Isaiah said. "Our rent jumped. And there are posts about my mother. They are coordinated. They have details no one should have." There was a brief pause. Then Brennan's voice sharpened. "Do not respond to anything publicly," he said. "Do not engage. Do not message the accounts. Do not speak to reporters if they contact you. I will escalate this to Mr. Whitmore immediately." Isaiah's grip tightened. "Who is doing this?" Another pause, shorter this time. "I cannot speculate," Brennan said, but his caution sounded rehearsed. The line clicked softly as Brennan transferred the call. Arthur's voice came through, lower, tight with restrained anger. "I am so sorry, Isaiah." Isaiah's chest rose with a hard breath. "Is this your son?" Arthur's silence lasted half a second too long. "Yes," Arthur said. "Marcus. I just confirmed he has hired investigators. He has been making calls. He moved faster than I expected." "Can you stop him?" Isaiah demanded. "I am working on it," Arthur replied. "But you need to understand something. He is not just protecting his inheritance. He wants to prove you are a fraud." Isaiah's jaw clenched. "The DNA is real." Arthur's voice tightened. "Marcus is filing a legal challenge claiming the evidence was manufactured." Isaiah stared at the laptop screen, the words scam and liar still floating in his vision. "While you fight," Isaiah said, "he is destroying my mother." Arthur exhaled. "Slow. I will cover your expenses. Your rent. Your mother's medical care. Whatever you need." Isaiah's voice turned bitter. "And then Marcus will say that is proof." "I do not care what Marcus says," Arthur replied, sharper now. "Renee is being targeted because of my family. Let me help." Isaiah looked at Renee. She sat still, hands clasped around a mug she had not filled, knuckles pale. Isaiah lowered his voice. "I do not want your money. I want them to leave us alone." Arthur's answer came quiet and grim. "That is not going to happen, Isaiah. Not until this is settled definitively." Isaiah's stomach tightened. "Then how do we end it?" Arthur's voice softened, but the decision inside it sounded final. "I am about to do something that will make it worse before it gets better," he said. "I am issuing a public statement, confirming you, protecting you and Renee, in daylight, not whispers." Isaiah's breath caught. "That will start a war." A pause. "The war already started," Arthur said. "I am just making sure everyone knows which side I am on." Isaiah stared at the screen again, at his mother's name turned into a weapon. Renee's voice was barely above a whisper. "This is why I ran," she said. "This is what his world does." Isaiah looked at her, Then back at the papers on the table, the termination folder and the rent notice, proof that someone had reached into their lives without touching them. He heard the faint buzz of his phone as a new notification arrived. Another stranger calling his mother a lie. Isaiah swallowed hard. "Then we do not disappear," he said. "Not this time." Arthur's voice came through. Steady. "Good," he said, "because neither will I." The apartment felt smaller when the bills started stacking. Paper edges curled on the counter. Envelopes slid under the door like warnings. Isaiah kept refreshing job listings until the screen blurred, sending applications into silence that never answered back. Renee came home each night smelling of disinfectant and tired muscles. She moved slower, but she still tried to smile, still tried to make dinner like routine could hold the walls up. On the fifth day after the rent notice, her phone rang during dinner. Her supervisor. Renee's shoulders stiffened before she even answered. When she hung up, she did not sit down again. "They cut my hours," she said, voice flat. "2 shifts. Starting next week." Isaiah's fork paused mid-air. "Why?" Renee shrugged without looking at him. "They said budget." The lie sounded familiar. Corporate language. Clean words hiding dirty hands. Isaiah pushed his plate away. He tasted nothing. His chest felt hot and tight, like he had swallowed a spark. He spent the next morning in a laundromat, laptop balanced on his knees, typing cover letters while machines churned. The air smelled like detergent and damp fabric. Every cycle ended with a hard, metallic click that made him flinch. Rejections came fast. Some automated, some empty. "Thank you for your interest. Not selected." He walked home with his hood up, shoulders hunched against wind that cut through thin fabric. The building looked the same from the street, but the doorway felt exposed, like eyes were always on it now. That afternoon, Isaiah's phone rang. A number from the hospital. His stomach dropped before he answered. "Mr. Jackson," a woman said quickly. "This is County General. Your mother is here. There was an incident at work." Isaiah's breath caught. "What kind of incident?" "She collapsed," the woman replied. "She is awake now, but she is in the emergency department. You should come as soon as you can." Isaiah was already moving. Keys, jacket, door. His hands shook so badly he fumbled the lock and had to try twice. The hallway smelled like old cooking oil and cheap cleaner, but he barely registered it. The drive was a blur of red lights and clenched jaw. His knee bounced uncontrollably at every stop. His phone buzzed with notifications he did not open. County General's entrance was bright and harsh. The automatic doors hissed open, releasing a wave of antiseptic air. The waiting room was full of tired faces and plastic chairs. A television murmured above the crowd, ignored by everyone. He found her behind a curtain in the emergency area. Renee lay on a narrow bed with a thin blanket pulled to her waist. Monitor lights blinked green and orange. A blood pressure cuff hugged her arm. Tape held an IV in place. Her eyes opened when he stepped in. "Baby," she whispered, voice thin, and still she tried to make it gentle. "I am okay. I just overdid it." Isaiah moved closer, taking her hand. Her skin felt cool. The pulse under his fingers was fast, fluttering. "You scared me," he said, and the words came out rougher than he intended. Renee tried to squeeze his hand, but her grip was weak. A doctor stepped in, flipping through a chart. Middle-aged, calm, the kind of face that delivered bad news for a living. "Mr. Jackson," the doctor said, "can we speak outside for a moment?" Isaiah followed him into the hallway. The fluorescent lights made everything look drained of color. A cart rolled by with a squeaking wheel. Somewhere, a call bell chimed, persistent and ignored. "Your mother's condition has deteriorated." the doctor said quietly. Stress is not helping. She needs rest, reduced hours. She also needs a specialist we cannot provide here. Isaiah's throat tightened. What does that mean? It means there is a treatment option that could improve her quality of life, the doctor replied. But it is expensive, and it is not covered by her current insurance plan. Isaiah's stomach sank. How expensive? The doctor said the number. Isaiah felt the floor tilt. His mind did the math anyway. It ended in the same place every time. Impossible. He walked back behind the curtain and stared at his mother. She had fallen asleep again, exhaustion pulling her under. Her face looked smaller on the pillow, the lines around her eyes deeper. Isaiah sat in the chair beside her bed and held her hand with both of his, as if he could anchor her to the world through grip alone. His phone buzzed. Arthur. Isaiah stared at the name for a long second, then answered. Is she okay? Arthur asked. His voice was low and tight, as if he had been holding anger in his teeth. She collapsed at work, Isaiah said. They say it is stress, and her condition getting worse. She needs treatment we cannot afford. A pause. Isaiah heard a faint sound on Arthur's end, like paper shifting. Give me the hospital information, Arthur said. I will handle it. Isaiah's jaw clenched. I cannot keep taking your money. Marcus is already calling us scammers. Arthur's breath came through the phone. Controlled. I do not care what Marcus says, Arthur replied. Renee is sick because of pressure my family created. Let me help. Please. Isaiah looked at his mother's hand in his. The IV line trembled slightly with each breath she took. The monitor beeped steadily. Indifferent. Okay, Isaiah said finally. But this does not mean I am backing down. Arthur's voice softened. I would never ask you to. Isaiah swallowed. Then what are you going to do? Arthur's answer came after a short pause, like he had already decided, and was simply choosing the moment to say it. I am going public, Arthur said. A statement. Confirming you. Explaining enough to shut down the lies. Making it clear that anyone who targets you or Renee answers to me. Isaiah's breath caught. That will make it worse. The war is already here, Arthur said. Silence will not stop it. It only teaches them they can keep squeezing. Isaiah looked toward the curtain, the outline of his mother's sleeping face visible in the hospital light. Arthur, Isaiah said, voice low, if you do this, your children will come harder. I know, Arthur replied. And this time, they will not be fighting in the dark. The call ended. Isaiah set the phone down and stared at the monitor lights, watching them blink like distant signals. Renee stirred, eyes fluttering open. Isaiah, she whispered. He leaned closer. I am here. Renee swallowed, voice barely there. Be careful, baby. Isaiah pressed his forehead to her hand for a moment, breathing in the faint scent of hospital soap on her skin. I will be, he said. But we are not running anymore. The statement went live at dusk. Isaiah saw it first, on a muted television mounted in the corner of the emergency waiting area. The screen cycled through breaking news graphics, bright red banners, and a photo of Arthur Whitmore that made the hospital's fluorescent light feel even harsher. Whitmore confirms paternity claim. The ticker read. Isaiah's stomach tightened. He stood with his back against the wall, arms folded so tightly his shoulders ached. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and old fries from a vending machine. A child cried somewhere behind him, then quieted into hiccups. On screen, Arthur's face filled the frame, not smiling, not performing warmth, just steady eyes and a jaw set like a man bracing for impact. He spoke in a short clip. The hospital's volume was low, but the captions ran clear. Isaiah Jackson, is my son. Renee Jackson deserves privacy and respect. Any harassment toward them will be treated as an attack on me. Isaiah's throat tightened. He looked away, then looked back, unable to stop. The words felt like a door slamming and a shield rising at the same time. His phone started buzzing before the clip ended. Unknown numbers, social media notifications, distant relatives he had never met, old classmates typing like they had been waiting for an excuse to re-enter his life. He turned the phone face down on the plastic chair beside him. It kept vibrating anyway, a relentless hum like an insect trapped under glass. A nurse stepped through the double doors and called his name. Isaiah followed her down a hallway where the floor reflected every overhead light like a mirror. Renee was awake when he entered her room. The television there was on too, the same story playing without sound. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then to Isaiah. "He really did it," she whispered. "He chose us," Isaiah said. Renee's lips pressed together, a line of complicated emotion. For a moment she looked less like someone recovering and more like someone remembering how dangerous visibility could be. Isaiah sat in the chair beside her bed. The IV bag hung above, the liquid inside catching light. The monitor beeped steady. He tried to focus on that rhythm, to pretend the world outside the hospital was not spinning into a different orbit. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Thomas Brennan. Isaiah answered, keeping his voice low. "What now?" he asked. Brennan sounded clipped, controlled. They moved within hours. As expected, Isaiah's jaw tightened. "Who?" Brennan hesitated just enough to confirm without saying it. "Marcus Whitmore filed a petition this afternoon. He is challenging Arthur's mental competency." Isaiah stared at the wall. The word competency landed heavy, like someone had found a legal way to call his father insane on paper. Renee's eyes narrowed. She did not need to hear the call. She could read Isaiah's face. "What did he do?" she asked quietly. Isaiah covered the phone's microphone for a second. He looked at her. "He says Arthur is not competent," Isaiah said. "That he is being manipulated." Renee closed her eyes, exhaling slowly through her nose like she was trying not to shake. On the phone, Brennan continued. "They are also disputing the DNA chain of custody. They will argue contamination, coercion, anything that creates doubt." Isaiah's hand clenched around the phone. "They already destroyed my job. They tried to bury my mother online. Now, they want to take his mind away in court." Brennan's tone sharpened. "Listen to me. Do not respond publicly. Do not go to the press. Do not post anything. Every word becomes a weapon in discovery." Isaiah's laugh came out bitter and small. "They already weaponized our silence." Brennan lowered his voice, careful. "We are scheduling a hearing. Arthur will testify. The lab will testify. And we will present evidence of the harassment." Isaiah stared at Renee's hand resting on the blanket. Her fingers looked thinner than they should. He felt a surge of anger so clean it steadied him. "How soon?" Isaiah asked. "Within days," Brennan said. "It will be public. Media will swarm. Your name will be everywhere." Isaiah ended the call and set the phone down. It buzzed immediately with a new notification. He did not look. Renee watched him. "This is what I tried to prevent," she said. Isaiah turned toward her, voice low but firm. "This is what they were always capable of," he replied. "The only difference is now we can see it." Renee swallowed. Her eyes glistened, not with weakness, with exhaustion. "If we walk into a courtroom," she said, "our life becomes entertainment. People will decide who we are based on headlines." Isaiah leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The hospital room smelled like sterile plastic, and faint alcohol wipes. They already decided, Isaiah said. They called you a scam. They called me a con artist. They did not need a courtroom for that. Renee looked away, jaw tightening. A nurse entered to check her vitals. The cuff inflated with a mechanical hiss. The machine beeped, then quieted. Renee's pulse was still too fast. When the nurse left, Isaiah's phone finally stopped buzzing for a moment. The silence felt wrong, like the calm before another hit. Then it buzzed again. A news alert. A headline. Whitmore heirs seek emergency injunction. Isaiah stared at it. His thumb hovered over the screen. Renee watched him carefully. Do not, she said softly. Isaiah did not open it. He set the phone down and looked at his mother. They think I am leverage, he said. A tool. A problem to erase. Renee's eyes filled, but she held her voice steady. That is how that world works, she said. People become assets. People become liabilities. Isaiah nodded slowly. He felt something settle inside him, like a lock turning. Then we stop being quiet, he said. Renee's breath caught. Isaiah continued, voice steady now, like he was speaking to himself as much as to her. They want to paint you as a liar. Then we force the truth into the light. They want to call me a fraud. Then we make them prove it in front of a judge, with paper and timestamps and receipts. They want to take Arthur's mind away. Then we make him speak for himself. Renee stared at him. Her eyes were wet. Her mouth trembled slightly, then firmed. You sound like him, she whispered. Isaiah's throat tightened. He did not answer that. He reached for her hand instead and held it. Renee squeezed his fingers weakly. If we do this, she said, there is no going back. Isaiah nodded once. His chest felt tight, but his mind was clear. I am not going back, he said. I am going forward. Outside the hospital room, the corridor lights buzzed. Somewhere down the hall, a TV played the same clip again. Arthur's face, the words that changed everything, the promise that made the war official. Isaiah stared at the monitor's steady pulse line and realized the next fight would not be in a mansion or online. It would be in a courtroom with cameras, where truth would have to survive being watched. The courthouse steps were a wall of sound. Cameras clicked in rapid bursts. Microphones pushed forward like spears. Reporters shouted names that tasted like headlines, not people. The air smelled of exhaust, wet concrete, and the sharp metallic tang of nerves. Isaiah kept his eyes forward. His suit was borrowed, the sleeves slightly short, the collar stiff against his throat. Renee walked beside him, thinner than usual, moving carefully, her hand tucked into the crook of his arm. Every few steps, a flash went off, and painted their faces white for a split second. A reporter leaned over the barrier. Renee, did you plan this for years? Another voice cut through. Isaiah, are you here for the money? Isaiah did not answer. The security detail Arthur arranged formed a quiet buffer, not aggressive, just present, their shoulders squared like doors. Inside, the courthouse lobby was cooler, the air-conditioned chill raising goosebumps on Isaiah's arms. Marble floors echoed under every footstep. A metal detector beeped as someone's belt set it off. The sound made Isaiah's jaw tighten. He thought of scanning packages, of mundane beeps meaning nothing. Here, every beep felt like a warning. In the courtroom, the ceiling lights were harsh and unforgiving. Wood benches held strangers leaning forward like they had paid for seats. A court officer called for order, voice sharp. People kept whispering anyway. Arthur sat at the front with Thomas Brennan and a line of attorneys in dark suits. He looked pale, but his posture was straight. His eyes found Isaiah across the room and held for a beat. Not warmth, something steadier, a promise that he would not flinch. On the opposite side, Marcus Whitmore sat with his siblings. Marcus wore a tailored suit that fit like armor. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold, scanning Isaiah with the blunt focus of someone calculating risk. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The room snapped into tense silence. When Isaiah's name was called, his mouth went dry. He stood, legs stiff, and walked toward the witness stand. The wood railing felt smooth under his palm. He raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat with his back straight, hands clasped on the edge of the stand. Thomas Brennan began with simple questions: name, age, employment status. The last one stung, and Isaiah felt heat creep up his neck. Then Brennan's tone shifted. Tell the court what happened that led you here. Isaiah breathed in, tasting the dry air, and spoke carefully, each sentence clipped and clear. He described the discovery, the private meeting, the confirmation. He described what came after, the quiet squeeze that tightened around his life without ever leaving fingerprints. Brennan's voice remained steady. What changed after Arthur Whitmore made his public statement? Isaiah's fingers tightened together. His eyes flicked once toward Renee. She sat with her hands folded, knuckles pale, gaze fixed on him like a lifeline. I was terminated from my job, Isaiah said. No warning, no cause, the courtroom murmured. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp. Isaiah continued. Our rent increased by $400 overnight. Then posts appeared online about my mother, coordinated, anonymous, with details that were not public. Across the room, Marcus leaned back, expression unchanged. It made Isaiah's anger flare. The calm was an act, a mask. Brennan's questions guided Isaiah through the timeline, pinning each event down with dates. Do you know who was behind these actions? Isaiah's voice steadied. I did not at first, he said. But the timing was too precise. Someone was trying to make us disappear. Marcus's attorney rose for cross-examination. He moved with practiced confidence, glasses catching the overhead light. Mr. Jackson, he began, voice smooth as ice. Is it not convenient that you appeared in Arthur Whitmore's life as your family faced financial difficulties? Isaiah's jaw tightened. I did not appear. I did my job. A job that paid triple for a special delivery, the attorney pressed. A delivery into a house you claim you had never heard of. Isaiah kept his gaze forward. I did not know the client. The attorney smiled slightly. A polite weapon. And yet within days, you were in private meetings with a billionaire. You expect this court to believe it is all coincidence. Isaiah felt the room watching him like a spotlight. He forced his hands to stay still. DNA is not coincidence, Isaiah said. The attorney's smile did not change. We will discuss the DNA. But first, your mother kept a valuable necklace. You needed money. You knew Arthur Whitmore had wealth. Are we to believe you did not see an opportunity? Brennan objected. The judge sustained it. But the implication hung in the air anyway, sticky and ugly. Isaiah stepped down from the stand, feeling his pulse in his throat. Renee was called next. She moved to the witness stand with slow composure, as if she had practiced walking through fire without letting anyone see her burn. When she swore to tell the truth, her voice did not shake. Brennan asked about her past. Her words were careful, measured, but the truth inside them carried weight. She explained fear without naming every detail. She explained choice without asking for pity. Marcus's attorney attacked with sharper edges. Why wait, Miss Jackson? Why remain silent until you needed medical care? Renee's eyes lifted to the attorney. Her voice hardened. I did not reach out, she said. My son found the truth by accident, and I begged him to leave it alone. The attorney leaned in, voice low. Yet, you kept the necklace. You kept the connection alive. Renee's jaw tightened. I kept a memory. I did not keep a plan. The judge's gavel tapped again. Silence returned. Then the lab expert testified. White coat, replaced by a conservative suit. Clear language. Process. Controls. Independent chain of custody. Probability exceeding 99.9. Marcus's attorney tried to poke holes. Contamination. Manipulation. Fabrication. The expert answered without emotion. Like a machine built for facts. The evidence held. Then Brennan stood and introduced the exhibits that changed the room's temperature. Receipts, invoices, bank records, phone logs. A court clerk approached with a stamped envelope, sealing tape intact. The seal was broken on the record. The sound of it ripping was loud in the silence. Brennan placed a document on the overhead projector. The screen displayed an email chain. Names, dates, subject lines. Isaiah watched Marcus's face finally twitch. Brennan's voice remained calm. These emails show coordination between Marcus Whitmore and a private investigative firm, he said. Here is the invoice for surveillance. Here is a payment matching the date Mr. Jackson was terminated. He clicked to the next exhibit. Here is a wire transfer to the landlord's account. The timestamp shows it cleared hours before the rent notice was posted. The projector glowed bright. Numbers, times, hard proof that did not care about charisma. A murmur swelled in the courtroom, then died under the judge's gavel. Marcus shot to his feet. This is fabricated, he snapped. This is, sit down, Mr. Whitmore, the judge said. Marcus's attorney grabbed his sleeve, pulling him down. Marcus's jaw clenched hard enough to show muscle. Brennan continued, methodical, and here are communications with a social media reputation firm. Payment for a coordinated campaign. Metadata tied to the accounts. Posting windows. Scheduled releases. Isaiah felt something shift inside his chest. Not relief, not victory. The sick certainty of watching a bully exposed without flinching. Then Brennan introduced Arthur's recorded testimony. The video played on the courtroom screen. Arthur sat in his study, eyes clear, voice steady. No confusion, no trembling uncertainty. I am of sound mind, Arthur said. Isaiah Jackson is my son. Then his voice sharpened. I invoke the forfeiture clause in my company charter. Any heir who acts with malice toward family members forfeits their inheritance. The courtroom erupted. Marcus's siblings began speaking over each other. Marcus's face went pale, then flushed red. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge hammered the gavel, voice rising. Order. When silence finally returned, it felt strained, like a rope about to snap. The judge reviewed the evidence, eyes moving from screen to paper, from paper to faces. The minutes stretched into something heavier than time. Then the judge spoke, voice even. The court finds the paternity results conclusive and properly obtained. The court further finds evidence of harassment and intimidation, orchestrated by Marcus Whitmore. Marcus's breath hitched. These actions demonstrate malice and bad faith, the judge continued. The forfeiture clause referenced is enforceable under the presented charter and applicable law. Marcus Whitmore's inheritance claims are hereby nullified. Marcus stood again, but this time his voice broke through the room like panic. You cannot do this. The judge's gaze did not soften. You did it to yourself, Mr. Whitmore, he said. Isaiah sat very still. His ears rang. His hands were cold. He looked at Renee. Her eyes were wet, but her face was calm, like a woman who had finally watched a shadow step into light. Across the room, Marcus stared at Isaiah with something that was no longer contempt. It was fear. And Isaiah realized the quiet war had ended the moment paper and timestamps became louder than money. The building emptied slowly, like the courthouse itself needed time to breathe again. Isaiah and Renee were guided through a side corridor away from the cameras. The hallway smelled like old paper and floor wax. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, steady and indifferent. Their footsteps sounded too loud, even on carpet. A door opened into a small conference room with plain chairs and a scratched table. No portraits, no chandeliers, just a pitcher of water and a stack of disposable cups. Arthur was already there. He looked exhausted, his face drawn tight at the edges, but his eyes were clear. When Isaiah entered, Arthur stood, then stopped himself, as if unsure what he was allowed to do with his hands. "It is done," Arthur said quietly. Isaiah's throat tightened. The adrenaline that carried him through the hearing had drained, leaving a heavy emptiness in its place. "Done," Isaiah repeated. Like a package delivery. Arthur flinched, then nodded, accepting the edge. "You are protected now," Arthur said. "Both of you." Renee stepped forward a half step, her posture controlled, but her voice carried something sharp under the calm. "Protected by what, Arthur? Your name, your money, your war." Arthur's jaw tightened. "By the truth," he said. "By the record. By evidence they cannot erase." Isaiah sat down slowly, the chair creaking. His hands were still cold. He stared at the plastic cup on the table, at the way the rim caught light. "Your children hate you," Isaiah said. Arthur did not deny it. "They chose malice," Arthur replied. "I did not put that in them. I just stopped rewarding it." Renee's eyes glistened, but she did not let the tears fall. "And what about Isaiah?" she asked. "What did you put him in?" Arthur's gaze shifted to Isaiah, steady and heavy. "I put him in what he was already in," Arthur said softly. "A world where people with power decide who deserves peace. I just refused to let them decide for him anymore." Isaiah swallowed. He could still hear the judge's voice in his head. Nullified, enforceable, malice, words that sounded clean while cutting lives apart. "I do not feel like I won," Isaiah admitted. Arthur nodded once, like he understood too well. "You did not win," he said. "You survived. There is a difference." A knock came at the door. A court officer peeked in and said something low to Brennan outside, then disappeared again. The sound of distant voices leaked through the hallway like a muffled storm. Renee sat down across from Arthur, slower than usual. Her hands rested on the table, fingers lightly touching, as if she was making sure her body was still listening to her. "I never wanted this," Renee said. "Not the cameras, not the shouting, not strangers tearing our lives apart for sport." "I know," Arthur said. Renee's gaze held his. "For 20 years I carried the weight of silence. Today I carried the weight of truth. I am not sure which one is heavier." Arthur's expression softened, and for a moment he looked less like a billionaire and more like a man who had made mistakes that did not fit inside apologies. "I cannot give you back time," Arthur said. "I cannot erase what you endured. I can only stop adding new harm." Isaiah's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. He could feel the vibration anyway, a reminder that the outside world was already chewing on the story, turning it into memes and takes and headlines. Brennan stepped into the room. His calm was thinner now, stretched by the day. "The media is waiting," Brennan said. "And there is one more thing, sir. Investors are reacting. There will be calls tonight. Emergency meetings." Arthur's face did not change. "Let them call," he said. Brennan hesitated. "Your health." Arthur waved it off. But Isaiah saw the flicker, a brief tightening around Arthur's eyes, like pain passing through and being hidden. Renee saw it too. She always had. "Arthur," she said quietly, "sit." Arthur started to protest, then sat. His breath sounded heavier than it should. He reached for the pitcher of water, but his hand trembled slightly. Isaiah's stomach tightened again, a familiar dread forming. "You are not invincible," Isaiah said. Arthur let out a short, humorless breath. "No," he said. "I just spent most of my life pretending I was." Silence settled. In it, Isaiah could hear his own heartbeat, slower now, but still loud. Arthur looked at Isaiah, and his voice lowered. "I need you to know something," he said, "about what happens next." Isaiah did not speak. Arthur continued. "You will be offered things, roles, titles, a seat at tables where people will smile at you and measure you at the same time." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "I do not want to run your company," Isaiah said. Arthur nodded, almost relieved. "Good," he said, "because I do not want you trapped in it either." He leaned forward slightly, his hands clasping together to steady the tremor. "But there is a part of what I built that matters," Arthur said. "The foundation. The work that can actually change something instead of just moving money around." Isaiah's eyes flicked to Renee. She watched without interrupting, her face cautious. Arthur's voice softened. "I want that in hands I trust," he said. "And I trust you more than anyone in my name." Isaiah felt a tightness in his throat that had nothing to do with anger. "You barely know me," Isaiah said. Arthur's gaze stayed steady. "I know enough," he replied. "I know you refused help even when you needed it, because you did not want to be bought. I know you stood in court and told the truth without trying to dress it up. I know you have lived on the side of the city that my world pretends does not exist." Renee's lips pressed together. Her eyes shone. Isaiah looked down at his hands. The skin around his nails was still torn. He thought of delivery routes, of heavy boxes, of customers who never looked him in the eye. He thought of his mother scrubbing floors until her body gave out. "If I take anything from you," Isaiah said, "it has to mean something." Arthur nodded. "Then make it mean something," he said. "Make it pay back what the system took from you. From her. From people like you." Outside, a distant camera shutter clicked somewhere in the hall. A reminder that nothing stayed private now. Renee reached across the table and touched Isaiah's hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. "You get to choose what you do with the truth," she said quietly. "That is what I wanted for you all along." Isaiah's chest tightened. He looked at his mother, then at Arthur, seeing them not as symbols or headlines, but as two flawed people standing in the wreckage of decisions made long ago. Then he stood. "I will not be your secret," Isaiah said, "and I will not be your trophy." Arthur's eyes glistened. "I would never ask you to be." Isaiah nodded once. "Then I will take responsibility," Isaiah said. "Not for your empire, for what it can do." Arthur exhaled slowly, like he had been holding that breath for years. Renee's shoulders sagged with something like relief. Brennan cleared his throat. "They will ask you for statements," he said. "Do you want to exit through the rear?" Arthur looked at Isaiah and Renee. His voice was quiet. "Let them see us," he said. "Not as a scandal, as a family." They walked out together. In the hallway, the sound swelled again. Cameras, voices, the bright sting of flashbulbs. Isaiah kept his head up. Renee's hand stayed on his arm. Arthur walked slightly behind them, not leading, not hiding. For the first time, Isaiah understood that legacy was not money or a name stamped on buildings. It was who got crushed and who got lifted when power shifted. Final image. Isaiah's old delivery jacket hung by his new door,